Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night comes from Penguins PR. Jen Bolano, Jake Gensel's goal 21 seconds in, 400th career point. He's the fastest player from his 2013 NHL draft class to close to 400 points. Not bad for the 77th overall pick. And once again, Andrew, therein lies another problem. The Stars score, that's not their issue. It hasn't been all year. It's bottom feeding. It's lines 3 and 4. They're getting virtually no contributions. They had a little spurt like a week ago where they got some. But really, that's been a problem all season long.
Yeah, and Bonino's got that lacerated kidney now, Bob, which is, that's a scary thought when your kidney gets cut like that. That's a pretty important important part of the body there. Granlund, I thought that was a terrible trade. It doesn't look like Ron Hextall is proving the cynics or doubters wrong with that one so far. They went into this week, I believe, if they had won this game, Bob, thinking, okay, 2 more with the Rangers, let's go there and maybe get ourselves out of the wild card race and into the Metro race with maybe a third-place spot on the line. No, instead, I think you got to look behind you again. You lose this game, to me, it's more about can you hold off the Panthers and the Capitals and the Senators and the Sabres and teams like that more than it is running down the Rangers for that third spot in the Metro.
Yeah, I agree. We have some NFL we'll get to in a second, but first I have our number one Cochran Go One Better Call of the Night. Let's go to McKee's Rocks. We got Will, who joins us as our caller of the night. Hey, Will.
How are you tonight?
We're good. What's up?
Hey, listen, just a question. Tonight's game and the way that it transpired for the Penguins, isn't that the type of game that people's jobs are on the line?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this kind of game, the one they had against San Jose, you might remember they fell behind where they were up. I think it was 4-0 on Detroit, lost that game. These are all home points that are so precious, and at the end of the year, they do add up. And if I tell you this, if they don't make the playoffs, I think you're going to see some pretty big changes, Andrew. But, they give you spurts where they look really good, and then they give you spurts where they really make you just lose your mind.
Well, when you say big changes, would you put the coach in that conversation?
No, I'm talking about Burke and I'm talking about Hextall.
But just out of curiosity, why would you say Sullivan is immune to that?
Because I think he's too good of a coach. I think he's also dealing with what they have, which is an older team that got older at the trade deadline. Didn't like that.
Do you blame him at all for the blown leads?
I think I blame him to a degree, but I also think it's these players too. The way that, I don't know how many times you can scream at him or tell him or reiterate end of period after you score. I mean, it's got to be frustrating. He doesn't show it to the media.
So they tuned him out?
I don't know that. I have no idea. All I know is that we see it happening over and over again. These are veteran players who should know better.
Well, I think if Mike Sullivan hadn't won 2 Stanley Cups, a coach goes 5 years without winning a playoff series. In the NHL, that's an eternity where guys get fired all the time. So that's why Mike Sullivan is still, a half-decade later, still looked at as a great coach in Pittsburgh because he has 2 rings. But, I'm a big believer in what have you done for me lately? What you did 10 years ago and 5 years ago really is not that important. And the excuses, after a long time, ring hollow for me. Mike Tomlin is the same situation. Oh, well, he had Ben Roethlisberger injured 1 year. Or, oh, he had a rookie quarterback. Well, yeah, at the end of the day, it's still 6 years without a playoff victory. So I think Mike Sullivan, I got to be consistent here, Bob. If I get on Tomlin's case for going 6 years without winning a playoff game, I got to do the same thing to Mike Sullivan. Are there extenuating circumstances? Does he have a bad GM? Does he have a horrible bottom 6? Has he had goaltending issues? Yes. But that's a really long time. 5 years. No other coach in Penguins history was given 5 years or had 5 years without a playoff series win. So, I don't know. I think at some point, I know people don't like to do this with Sullivan, but I do think that he has to at least catch some flack for the fact that his team blows games against bad teams like the one we watched tonight.
And I think that's a fair point, but I'm not going to go that far. To me, it starts with and ends with Hextall and their management group up there. Let's go to Matt and Butler. What's up, Matt? How are you?
Hey, guys. Hey, I tend to agree here with what Andrew was just saying. But, you look, the 2 points they got against Columbus, it was a terrible game. It was an absolute terrible game. I know they got the 2 points, great, wonderful, but you can't play that way in the playoffs. You're not going to win. And they have shown repeatedly that they do not have a team that can win in the playoffs. And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
Well, and I'll tell you one thing that hasn't changed, they keep talking about, and Brian Burke does this a lot, about a physical presence. The only people responding physically are Malkin and Gensel and people like that. That's it. They don't have anyone else who does or is willing to or can. And I think that's been something that they should have shopped and looked after. And you can make the point to me that Reeves was here and then Sullivan didn't play him. And I will agree with that.
Yeah,
I thought that was a mistake.
That's what I was going to say, Bob. I think that
they messed up with Ryan Reeves. He should have been here. I would have kept him here no matter what.
Well, but I don't think Sullivan I don't think he believes in the physical style. I think he wants speed. I think he wants to beat teams with skill and by outskating them. And how do you do that when you're the oldest team in the NHL? In fact, I've seen people point out that they're like the oldest team in NHL history after all the moves they've made to bring in guys that are on the north side of 30. So, I know this guy hasn't won a championship, Bob, but he was just on my mind. I was thinking about Jamie Dixon today and the way that he's evolved as a coach at TCU. Ben Howland was on our show talking about that today. The way that he's changed, a great coach evolves. And I don't see that as much from Sullivan. I need more of that. Take the players that you have and adapt. Or if you can't win with speed, maybe you should try to impart to your GM to bring in more physical players. And I just don't see any aggression on the Penguins' part to do stuff like that.
Let's go out to Jim in Belanox. Hey, Jim, what's up?
Hi, Jim.
Hey, gentlemen. The player that they're going to miss a lot more than people think is Kulikov.
He's week to week. Everybody they've acquired is injured now, it seems. It's amazing, except Granlund. So, that's a big loss. And then Ruda gets hurt in this game, and then Petrie leaves. They were down to 4 defensemen.
Kulikov's been in the NHL for 13 years. He's never been on a team that's won a playoff series. Last year in the playoffs, he was a 6th defenseman or 7th defenseman. He's a depth guy. Does he help your team win? I guess. But if you're falling back on that, he's a big loss. Well, then your team's not that good in the first place. That's the type of player that's a depth guy who should help you when other players get injured. You shouldn't look at him like an irreplaceable guy. So,
and I don't know. But what I do say is that's Ron Hextall. Again, these trades and everything that would happen was not enough for me.
Well, that was not about the player they brought back. That was about getting rid of McGinn's contract,
regardless,
Bob, which was another Hextall mistake.
Problem. So was Kasperi Kapanen. Evan Rodriguez was in here, and I watched him last night in Montreal. That guy is fitting in on a top line, and he's doing some really good things. That Landeskog has not played. He's taken his spot. He was a guy who's very cheap, $2 million. They chose to go away from him.
Well, how about John Marino? We're talking about
Kulikov.
How about Ty Smith being buried in the minor leagues the entire year,
that's
Bob?
all salary cap issue. But again, that's part of Ron Hextall's job. Let's go out to Todd. Is it in Shaler? Hey, Todd, how you doing?
Hey, guys, how are you?
We're up.
Hey, Todd.
Good. Hey, how much is this? I get Hextall problem, but Jimmy Rutherford didn't do much the last 6 years either, because the last good player he drafted was Gensel. Not that I'm in favor of Hextall, but Jimmy Rutherford owns some of this as well, because he didn't draft anybody good in since 90.
Well, I think his philosophy was totally different too. He gave away a lot of draft picks, and so there's not much unless you hit on these late.
Well, didn't he also draft Sprong and Gustafsson? Am I wrong about that, Bob? Doesn't he get credit for both of those guys?
Yeah,
I know they're on
is a late
different
developer,
teams now.
and Gustafsson has been outstanding this year, and they traded him, and
Right.
I thought that was a little much at the time, to be honest.
Well, the Brassard deal was a mistake. That was a bad move by Rutherford. He took a lot of shots. He hit some home runs, and he struck out. I like that about him as a general manager. This guy doesn't really do that, Hextall, and I think that's part of the problem. He tries to have it both ways. He tries to make trades to help them, but also hold on to assets for years down the road.
It's like that song, I'm stuck in the middle with you, and I don't know which way
That's
I
from
should
Reservoir
do.
Dogs, Bob. You ever
It's
see that
so
movie? The guy
hard.
gets his ear cut off in that scene.
Well, bottom line is he's stuck in the middle. We got to take a break. We'll take it right now. Come back with more. We'll try to get some NFL talk in and more calls. We're right here live. Pittsburgh CW. Don't go away.